Hey, thanks everybody for being here. As mentioned, Eric mentioned, I'm Austin Glass. I am a cinematographer based out of Seattle area right now. And I have a little experience with ICVFX I wanted to share with everybody. I did a few commercial spots in ICVFX, and I just wanted to share kind of like a case study, I think, is a good way to look at it, where it's, we did a series of 10 spots for a national campaign, and there was a lot of lifestyle type of stuff, and we did it in a relatively short timeline, considering how much content we were shooting. So I wanted to share that. The title of my presentation is "Doing More with Less." What you might find out once you see the behind-the-scenes pictures I'm going to show you, that's a generous description, it being less, because it does kind of look like a lot, I'll admit. But my point I want to make about this, hopefully I do a good job of driving it home, is it would have taken a lot more to pull it off than what we had ultimately. So you guys will get to be the judge on that. But basically, let's talk a little bit about myself. So I have been doing virtual production work since about 2020, was when our first project was. I've done more than 24 jobs in virtual production as the DP. Some of those were commercial, some of those were corporate video, things like that. I worked at a stage out in the Seattle area called Vossler Studios. It's a very, very well-built stage out there. They use AOTO panels, just like the ones here on this wall. In my opinion, a very, very good panel. While there, we built 3 different LED stages at different times throughout the course of building and then improving and making things better. So I've been an intimate part of the building of all 3 of those different stages there. And then, as I mentioned before, what I'm going to talk about today is we shot a national ad campaign using virtual production technology. So I'm going to show you a quick little, sizzle, I guess, of some of the stuff that we shot in virtual production. This is just a little bit, but I'm going to show this here. Let's play that. Thank you. Thanks, Wolfie. By the way, a tough act to follow. Thanks for warming me up a little bit there. So anyway, that was a quick little sizzle. Yeah, like I said, a combination of types of projects there. But the one we're going to talk about is, these are a few stills from the campaign itself. So like I mentioned, a total of 10 spots. It was shot over the course of 9 production days. Which, I mean, it kind of sounds like a lot, but they're 60-second spots. It was kind of a lot of content, so I still feel like that was a pretty good timeline. But we did about 7.5 of the spots were done in a virtual production stage, and a couple of them were done on location. So we'll go through those. Let's see. So we had the all-important question in the beginning: why should we use virtual production for this? Because as you notice, some of those locations looked kind of like real places, and you say, well, why not use a real place? And sometimes that is the smartest answer, and it kind of takes a keen eye to know, like when you're looking at creative, how should we go about capturing this content? If this is something that we should shoot on location, then shoot it on location. But I think in this case, there were a lot of good reasons why we wanted to go virtual production. So the main one, number one, is we had a short production schedule. So, I mentioned it was 9 days, and we're shooting 60-second spots. So we knew we had to be fast, and a lot of location moves would have been a little bit problematic for us. And then we had, as part of that, we had limited time with the celebrity talent. So there were a few spots that used some spokespeople who were flying out, and of course they have very limited schedules themselves. And then we needed a large variety of locations. So it was something that ended up being it made sense for, like I said, about 7.5 of those spots to use virtual production. I'm going to show you a quick little, well, it's already playing, but there's no sound. This is just a quick little cut down of one of the 60s. You can see some of these virtual production shots. Pretty much all of this was done on stage. What I wanted to talk about in this is you kind of look at what's behind him, what's behind the car. There's a clever use of real stuff and not real stuff, right? It's the real and the unreal. I want to dive into that a little deeper. Tomorrow I'm giving another talk on the practical sets because I think there's a lot to learn from that. But basically, like we can see this engine jack over here is real. All the stuff behind him, that's part of the game engine. So that is the end of that clip. Let me advance to this. So we started with this. This was just a Google image that we found online. We were trying to figure out what we wanted the spot to look like. And we thought, hey, this is a great looking spot. What if it takes place in that type of garage? So number one, we didn't know where to find one of those garages. I mean, we probably could have if we wanted to search for a while, but we use this as a reference point. And then from there, we created a couple of previs images, which helped us to figure out where the wall is. Our 3D artist did a scene mock-up using Blender to get us some really good lighting from here. He can kind of had control over things, and then he would do this overlay here so we could see where this was the wall, the shape of the wall that we used this mesh here to show us where the scene geography is. So, we know everything in front of the wall here needs to be a real object. That needs to be a real thing, and then everything behind is virtual. That just helps us wrap our minds around everything because it's important that we don't have a virtual object that's inside this space because the parallax the focus primarily won't look right on the camera. Things just kind of look a little wonky, and you've broken your illusion at that point. And then, of course, we can't put anything that's real back there. It just doesn't work. So we had one real car and then one virtual car. So I have a couple of behind-the-scenes pictures. You can kind of get a sense of that. So this beautiful Mach 1 that we found from a collector was there. That was a fun car, nice and loud. And then we have our tool reel, the engine jack I mentioned before. A few tires back there, and that's pretty much it. The Stingray in the back there is, of course, virtual. All that stuff out there is virtual. There's a better view. You can see a very large RE360 over there. Those are great lights when you need that directional light. We have to keep these really low because, of course, you get spill on the wall as the contrast, that black point that Wolfie was talking about. It's a real challenge, day in and day out. But once you get it right, then it looks great. So, yeah, exactly. What Wolfie said was, he said, we have the egg crate on there to control the spill. In fact, if I'm being critical of my own work, we did get a little bit of that spill on the back wall over here in the shot. Some things we just couldn't quite control as well on the day. But exactly, the egg crate keeps all the light off of this back part of the wall when the camera's pointing that way. Let's see, what's my next one? I think just a wider view of the same thing. You get the idea. You guys have seen sets before, I'm sure. Here's a little behind the scenes. Also no sound here, so I'll just talk over it. Just a little, I found a few BTS videos. I thought it'd be nice to throw them in there. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's not a lot of real stuff in the room. People are real, I guess. Let's show to the next spot. So this next one is probably my favorite one from the series. This was a pottery, like an artist loft thing. This one had a pretty good sized reel set. That wall right behind her is a real one. And then the opening there opens into the virtual. That behind her is virtual. Yeah, the table here is real. Obviously, that person there is real. I guess not obviously. Could be a meta-human, right? But it's not. It's a real person. And then I have one more shot in this. I want to show you guys. It's coming up. There it is, the wider shot. The step back here, one step is real, one step is fake. In our case, we had a practical reason why we needed to have a step there. Hide the floor, exactly. It's less of a problem on when you hang the wall like this one's hung right here. We can get this wall really low to the ground. But in our case, we didn't have the hardware to hang it, so we set it on the floor, which means we have about 6 inches of support underneath the LED panels. So we just get creative with art department on how to hide that, how to conceal it. It becomes something you just sort of get used to working with. Yeah, here's some behind the scenes. You can see that step here. And actually, this particular scene, we didn't plan on doing a step. We were going to try to hide it with the table and just some more floor gack. But we did a different scene the day before where we were planning on using a step, and it worked so well that when we loaded this on the day, I went to our Unreal Engine person and I said, hey, could we like raise our world a little bit and pretend like there's a step? And so he went into the project that we used the day before, and he took the concrete step from that project, imported into this one, and within maybe 10 minutes we had a raised background area. So it's like, I don't know, it worked really well. I thought, as far as like working on the fly, it was a really fun way to do it. Thank you. Yep, okay, yeah, more behind the scenes. I didn't know what you guys like. Drop cloths help hide that seam too a little bit when we need it. You know, you just got to think about what would be in this sort of space for real. Okay. Here's another spot. This one's a little different. This one didn't use Unreal at all, which is why I wanted to include it. The kitchen she's in is a set that is built. The window is real glass. The door is real glass. Even those plants right outside the door are real. Back over there, that's real. But everything else is just a plate shot from my own backyard. Like, you can even tell there's not really a lot of parallax back there because it's not real. I think it works. I mean, we got away with it. Yeah, it was a little different. You know, part of the budgetary things you're deciding is like, how many Unreal scenes can we build? They're more expensive than plates. I shot these plates in maybe 30 minutes when the weather was decent. My kid was playing in one of them, but you didn't see him, so it's fine. You know, it's became something that saved a pretty good amount of money. That's our set, just a little L shape with an island. We had a short return wall over on the far right. You know, and then we're just sort of, you know, we're lighting through the windows. I love lighting through windows when you can. You know, if you have a big enough LED volume, you get your set away from that wall. Obviously, it helps with the moire problem we're talking about. And it also helps with giving you space, physical space to put lights through. If you have a light right outside that window, it won't look right. Inverse square law doesn't work in your favor, all that kind of stuff. So there you have it. That is that scene. I think I got one more. Yeah, there it is with the screen in its default mode, just so you can kind of see what's what. Let's see. So what did virtual production do for this campaign? So, and also what can it do for commercial production as a whole? Well, we had limited company moves. That's a huge win. Producers like that. We have all-day control over lighting. Actually, the scene with the artist loft, the story I wanted to tell was my gaffer for that one. He told me towards the end of the day, he said, I shot a scene very similar in look to this in the past where we were shooting in a real location, and he spent all day chasing the sun because you got so many real windows with real sunlight coming in, and he's chasing the sun all day long. I mean, he's used to it. Like, that's what we do. But in this case, we didn't have to. We set the lights where we liked them, and then we just moved the camera. That was it. It was beautiful. It's a very nice way to do things. And then, of course, the speedy set turnover. using real location shoots allowed us to free up the stage so that the next set could be assembled, that kind of thing. And then my favorite, air conditioning all week. So that was a nice win. Let's see, I think, is that my last slide? That is my last slide. That's all I got. So that was the story of that particular production. If I have time for questions, I probably only have a minute or two, but if anybody has questions, I can answer them.
How much time did you guys spend pre-production designing your sets in your Unreal environment, and how many people were involved in that?
So we had a team of, I want to say there was a handful of art department, virtual art department team. It wasn't a lot. And we actually did that in 2 waves. So it was 9 days total. It was 4 the first wave and then 5 probably 3 or 4 weeks later. So we took that time in between to do pre-pro on the second batch. So overall, I'd say maybe it was 7 to 8 weeks of pre-pro time getting ready. But again, it was a reasonably small crew, so not too big. Yes, over here.
Hello. I was just curious whether for your pre-production, when you walked onto set, all your virtual lighting was done completely, or did you still have to make tweaks on the day?
We're always making tweaks on the day. On set is never the first time that we look at it on an LED volume wall. We got to look at it beforehand. We got to identify problems, and we have notes that virtual art department takes to change where things are. Yeah, but we always walk on set, and there's always something. It's like either this is too bright or too, the color's wrong or whatever, and then so it always happens.
And that's a pretty big difference between something like Mandalorian, where they're pre-baking all the lighting and all that stuff, setting it up. So,
I love your choice. I love your choice of the S360 for a hard key light feeling, but that light is a medium style panel that falls off a cliff with the stop very quickly.
Yeah.
So a big, soft, like it really you watch the commercial, it looks like hard sunlight coming in.
Yeah.
But then I was like, whoa, bold choice. How do you get hard light without blowing out it? Because you were doing complex moves. I'm like, that light's pointing at a wall.
Well,
like that's good. That's a neat look. Good choice of key light.
Thank you. Actually, and I would say, I don't know that, the way we were using that S360 was actually kind of as it was a key certainly at times, but it's augmenting a key, because we did have a couple of punchy fixtures mounted up above the wall in that direction. Like I defined on my charts, I said, this is where the sun's coming from. And so they put a couple of lights up there, and we dim them as needed for the shots, just to kind of give a little more edge depending on where the camera's looking. So sometimes it looks like a really hard light, but it's only being edged with like a little kicker or something that makes it feel like it's way punchier than it actually is. So thank you.
all right, we got one more question over here.
Yeah.
So what is the relationship with you as the DP working with a gaffer, and then now this virtual environment with tweaking lighting on the day? How does that work? What was it like for you during this series?
Well, I think that's a great question. And generally speaking, I like my virtual production work to be as routine as possible. So if we do it a certain way when we're on location, let's take those same techniques and workflows and try to implement them as much as possible. So that said, the gaffer is in control of the real lights in the room, right? But the Unreal artist or the wall operator is the person who's in charge of all the virtual lights. So knowing where those two things separate from one another is it's helpful, because then I can guide and say, okay, well, I want to make a tweak to the light, but so we have to change it in the virtual, so I got to go talk to this guy, and then we need to change it in the real world, so I got to talk to this person. So it's really organizational, just kind of in your mind. It feels very natural though, so I would say.
All right, I guess we have one more question.
Yes.
Is there any world where the virtual artist can cue the physical lights?
There's always a world. Yeah, we're in the business of creating worlds, and that is absolutely possible. So
have you done that in one of your shoots?
Yeah, and in that demo thing I showed at the beginning, there was a scene where, and that was shot just as a test because we wanted to experiment with this. We basically had this lightning flash in the virtual that was cued by a physical button. So we had to map that out. What we can do is we can extend that out. The same button could control a practical, like a movie light that's in the room. You can do both at the same time. You might have some timing issues to figure out, but it's absolutely possible. If you can think of what you want to do, you can do it.
Right.
Absolutely. It just takes time. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Austin. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. All right.